Well, you're all troopers to still be at it here later in the afternoon, so congratulations and thanks for participating. I'm Jim Moore. I'm the president and one of the co-founders of MESA. We are a pro bono mentoring organization focused on working with Minnesota software startups. Our mentors are all volunteers. They don't get paid. MESA doesn't take equity. It's a true pro bono relationship that we have with the companies that we mentor. And I'm going to refer to them as mentees. I've never figured out if that's actually a word, so I will do that. I'll probably also use entrepreneur and founder interchangeably through this. So we've been at this for 12 years. We've worked with 76 Minnesota-based software startups during that period of time. And through those 76 experiences, we've identified 5 subjects, topics, that we teach on a lot, very frequently through these engagements. And so I characterize this as learnings from the mentee side that I want to share with you today. So founders, entrepreneurs, they know they've got fantastic domain knowledge. That's the basis upon which they're going to create their software, create their offering, create their value that they're going to bring to the marketplace. But leading a business is typically not a founder's experience. In fact, I would say that 85, 90% of the mentees that we work with, they're running a business for the first time with the company that we're interacting with. So they're being smart people, they can learn on their own, and they will. But the challenge is, and you're going to hear me reference speed and fast a lot during my talk, speed is critical for any entrepreneur, any startup, because time is critical. The good news is, and I'm not sure that we knew this would be the case when we started MESA 12 years ago, the critical startup business needs repeat themselves, and that's what I'm going to address today. So it's a simple fact that if you could interact with an advisor or a MESA mentor like we are, we can speed the learning, and it's certainly better if you can be associated with someone who's been there, done that, in terms of these critical business needs to learn faster. So how have I learned? I've had the good fortune to lead 6 Minnesota-based tech companies over decades. I think I raised the average age in this room by at least a couple of years. 5 of those were successful, 1 was not, and I'm proud to talk about that one too. One of the 5 companies that was successful was Identix, a public company that we sold for $775 million, 10x revenue. I also, my last company, raised $12 million of VC money, with the lead being a well-known Silicon Valley VC firm. Doing that in 2012, 2014 in Minnesota was a fairly unusual event to do. I'm now president, and as I said earlier, a co-founder of MESA. What makes MESA unique and why we have learned this is we typically, with these 76 companies that we work with, we typically work with each company for 2 to 3 years, with 1 or 2 mentors working with the company during that period of time. We now have 44 volunteer mentors. They are all active or retired C-level software executives, and a very high percentage of them have also run a startup. So when I talk about a been there, done that experience, they certainly have it. And I've been involved either as a solo mentor or with another mentor colleague in mentoring 15 of these 76 companies. So the 5 elements, the 5 topics that I'm going to address today are these: selecting a first market, a founder as a first-time salesperson, driving and being on a path to create predictable sales results, getting ready to raise capital, not just raise capital, but getting ready to raise capital, and then obviously avoiding cash crises. The slides are going to be on the wordy side because I want to convey the information, and I want to do it both verbally but also allow you to be able to read these. And of course, these presentations are on the Minibar site. So I said selecting a first market. The key is selecting a first fast market. And to go into that in some detail, what you're looking for in that first market is a market that's going to be fast to adopt your offering. The natural tendency for the entrepreneur founder is to go after the big market, the large market, the shiny ball. And our advice, and what we've certainly learned over the years, is that you're looking for that first fast market. Back again to time and speed. Time and speed should be important in any business. It's critically important in a startup. People typically think about cash being the constraint on a business. It's time. It's time. In fact, if you put time and cash in the same sentence, if you take too much time to get where you need to go, you will likely run out of cash first. And so this is, in these order of 5 items, this first one is absolutely mission critical. Now, there's some obvious things that come from it, which is fast learning. You get early adopter feedback. And I know that phrase is reversed. It's not product market fit. It's, in my mind, market product fit. You're looking for the market that is going to be fast to adopt the product that you have, not the product that will be in the future. Because again, you're back to time. When you get this and you've got these fast first adopters, they're obviously going to lead to customer testimonials. We encourage all of our mentees to quickly get customers to talk about their value, and the benefits they're getting from the offering, rather than it coming from the founder itself. I'll talk a little bit about that more later. But again, back to this time-cash combination is, when you found that fast first market and you're getting customers in the market, obviously you're going to be minimizing your cash burn. Almost never will it be an enterprise market. We've had some of our mentees, I'm looking at one of my mentor colleagues right now, who have experienced working with mentees that were sure they needed to go after an enterprise market first, and they just take too long. Doesn't mean they won't be a great market for you in the future, but if you're trying to say fast first market, that and enterprise just aren't in the same sentence. With each of these 5 points, I'm going to kind of relate to a mentee example we've had. This mentee actually happens to be in the room right now. His offering is a set of business tools focused on the fitness market. And the fitness market can range from gyms to dance to yoga to some kind of parallel market situations like chiropractors. And it ranges in size of customers, prospects, from solo entrepreneurs. So think about a dance studio where it's just a solo entrepreneur, on up to studios in any of those markets. So in identifying a fast first market for this mentee, they went after solo entrepreneurs in one of those single verticals that I just mentioned. They were able to get to the decision makers faster, because the decision maker is that solo entrepreneur, and quickly gain customer acceptance. I listened to them because this is a company that I work with myself. They learned tremendously, turned around the product, made it a lot better, grew their cash, got to the point where they, in fact, were able to bring in some investor money, and are now moving on to the larger players in that vertical market, the studios. So a very, very smart approach to getting into the marketplace fast with companies that would adopt fast. So in terms of, in your own way, having to look for what would be that fast first market, at the top of the list, absolutely at the top of the list, is your offering is a need to have, not just a nice to have. I've run companies that have been in both categories. When you're a need to have, it's a lot of fun. When it's a nice to have, it's a slow slog up the hill. And when you're thinking about that, the challenge is the founder, you're convinced that your offering is terrific stuff. Every entrepreneur thinks that they solve world hunger. The challenge you have is get your prospects and customers to tell you why it's a need to have. You need the validation from them that it's a need to have. And if you're really going to make this fast, what you need to find is, as you're going through talking with prospects, converting those prospects to customers, that you're getting a similar response from each of them. So when you ask the question and explore the need to have element of it, do they talk about it in disparate ways or in very similar ways? If they talk about it in similar ways, you can have confidence that you're in a situation where you can be fast because your market message can be similar. Your sales pitch can be similar. I would think a mentee would be a whole lot better off having 10 first customers telling them the same thing, responding the same way, than having 20 customers telling them completely different things. So, second on the list is founder as a first-time salesperson. In our experience, the very, very high percentage of the founders that we work with are from a technical background, techies. And as I mentioned earlier, they're running a business for the first time. You don't have the cash to go out and hire a salesperson. And so guess who gets to be that first salesperson? It's you. Again, smart people, but this is something that they're doing for the first time. And again, you want to help them learn fast, going back to the whole issue of speed. So at the top of the list, learn quickly, both in terms of how to sell and learn from your prospects. I would say that it's very frequent that when we go into a mentoring situation where the founder has to be this first-time salesperson, the first teaching we do is literally kind of on sales 101. And some of the things that we talk about, and starting with listen and ask open-ended questions. The founder is enthusiastic. The founder wants to talk about their offering. They want to go into technical detail. Please don't do that. You know, what you need to tell them enough so that the prospect knows why you're there and why they think they should be continuing the conversation. But at that point, your job is to start asking open-ended questions, okay? And the first thing that you're trying to explore is, are you in fact a need to have for this prospect? Can the individual that you're talking to articulate the benefits that they're going to be getting? Again, you're not talking about the technical features. You want them talking about the benefits that they're getting, that you can kind of identify that, yes, this is a need to have. Another thing as a first-time salesperson is identifying early whether a prospect is a yes, a no, or a maybe. One of the best salespeople I ever worked with said, I hate maybe. My job is to wean out the maybes as quickly as I can. Maybes, more often than not, will not end up being a customer, and in the process, they will just suck time. And as that founder, as a first-time salesperson, you don't have the time to stay with someone who's going to just have you keep coming back and back and not be a yes. Now, what makes for a yes? And how can you identify that early? First on the list is there a champion inside that prospect company? It hopefully is the person you're talking to. But whether it is or it isn't, is there someone that you have confidence in will take your story, well, you've left, right? And that person will take your story to others in that company and say, I found this new company, this is what they do, we need to consider this. Second, how many levels to the decision maker? It's great if you've got a champion, but if you're 6 levels away from a decision maker, the probability of success and the time for success just increases. Think in the worst case, an enterprise level company. How many levels do you think there are from the time the first person you talk to getting to the decision maker in the company? And lastly, do they buy from startups? It's great if you've got a champion, but if there's no history that that company buys from a startup, you're going to be first. And probably when it gets to the decision maker and you being a startup, they're going to look at you as a risky enterprise, right? Low on staff, low on money, low on customers at that point in time. But if they do have a history of buying from startups, that road's been traveled. And that's something very much to look for. The hard thing about this yes, no, maybe is no's are good. No's are good. You're going to learn something from the no's. You're going to learn why they've said no. But you're also going to spend the least amount of time with that prospect so you can go to spend more time with the prospects that are potential yeses. And leave every meeting with an action step and a date, hopefully on the customer's side. Now, you can't pull that off each and every time, but you certainly can't pull it off if you don't ask for it. And this is, again, how you're going to get speed going inside that prospect. It will also be an indicator of that, whether that individual is the champion or not, that they agreed to the fact that there's going to be an action step with a date. Yes?
How do you respond when a potential customer says, come back when you have feature X, Y, Z?
Well, it depends on how substantial that feature is. I would say when you think about a fast first market, I think there's a correlation between market segments that are fast and have lower product needs. Because they see what you've got as a need to have, so they want to buy now. The one that tells you, well, I need this bell and whistle, that's not fast. I think that's part of the challenge is that you're looking for those early adopters who are going to buy what you want. And back to my comment about market product fit, that's my point, which is you're looking for the market that sees the need to have features of what you have today. Sure, you're going to build out more features and functionality in the future, but you're looking for that fit right now. So just as an example here, I had a mentee. She hired a salesperson. She'd never sold before. She hired a salesperson. Salesperson wasn't performing. Time was marching on. And we just got to the point of saying, cut the cord, let the person go. And she realized she needed to be that first-time salesperson. Fast learner. We meet typically with our mentees once a month. We'd come back to her the next month. She'd tell us about the prospect meetings that she'd had, what went well, what she learned. And guess what? She started getting customers. And when she got enough customers that she had enough cash to hire the next salesperson, guess what also happened? She was a smarter sales manager because she had been through the process herself. So there's a lot of benefit for the founder to be the first-time salesperson. I'm not sure that most of them would volunteer and raise their hand to do so, but it's a necessity. And this is, again, where a mentor or advisor can help tremendously. Path to predictable sales results. I would say that this is probably, of the 5, the one that's least well understood by founders. And the reason to do it is if you're thinking about getting investment money, there's nothing investors like more than having a emerging growth company coming to them where they all are already on the path to predictable sales results. as I say, the pitfall of Excel is when you're first starting out, you create your 24-month projection on revenue, and it's always a hockey stick. But you go inside the Excel cells and you say, oh, it's last month's sales multiplied by 1.05. What's the next month? Oh, it's the previous month multiplied by 1.05. That's not predictable sales results. And so what we advise on is getting to a discipline of sales pipeline management as quickly as you can. What you're looking for here is, okay, I've got my prospects in the upper of my pipe, and I'm going to take them through stages. And typically it's 4 to 5 stages. It can be initial contact, demo held, decision maker met with, contract sent, contract signed. It doesn't really matter. I mean, there's going to be logical for your business what they should be. But what you're looking for as you build up that pipeline is what % move from stage 1 to 2 to 3, and how long does it take to move from stage 2 to stage 3? Because the ultimate goal here is you're trying to find out, for a salesperson, how much revenue can they bring in a period of time, call it a year, versus what it costs me for that period of time. So it's that revenue generated to sales expense ratio. If you don't have a good sales pipeline management, you're going to be waiting for contracts to be signed to be able to know what that performance and the metrics are. So to me, that's a lag metric. Wouldn't it be better if you had a sales pipeline discipline in place to say, we just had 10 demos this week. We now know, we have confidence that 4 of those will convert 2 months from now to contracts. Those are lead metrics. And you're going to learn earlier in the process whether your sales team and each individual salesperson is in fact achieving a profitable revenue generated to sales expense ratio. And of course, you're going to start with assumptions from the start. But you're going to know ballpark assumptions. So you say, okay, how many calls can we make per week? X. What % do we think we can convert to demos? Y. Again, I'll tell another mentee story. This was when I worked with somebody else, fantastic sales executive. And he literally took, in a 2-month period, the two individuals we were mentoring and set up this sales pipeline discipline. And they ballparked the volumes they needed. And they started tracking with the first salesperson they hired. And they were doing well, except their demo to contract conversion was lower than what they assumed. And because they had ballparked this, they knew that was where they were seeing weakness. And they went back and looked at their demos, they looked at their demo scripts, they looked at how the seller was doing the demos, and they realized that they needed to up their game in that. But they were able to quickly identify this because they were tracking prospects through the pipeline. They fixed the problem, they got back on track, they put the sales pipeline management system in place in Q2 of last year. They've since then hired their second and third salespeople with confidence because they've got this sales pipeline information. And at some point, consider using software. There are some great software tools out there. Some of our mentees use Zoho. I've heard great things about Outreach.io. So getting ready to raise capital. It's not infrequent that when we start with a mentee that we say, well, what are you thinking about capital? Well, I want to raise $1 million by the end of the year. That's cool. And then we start into, are you really ready to raise capital? And I will tell you a very high percentage of the time it's not. And let me just run through some key points on this. The first one is, do you need to and want to? We have very successful mentees that started bootstrapped and have maintained bootstrapped and are running very, very successful businesses. We've had other mentees that from the get-go say, I know I need an A round and a B round because of the market I'm in, and I'm going to need that capital horsepower to be successful in that marketplace. There's no right answer, and it's not our job to try to tell you you should do A or B, but it really is important to have an appreciation for how you think you want to be in terms of raising capital and sharing ownership in the company. Find somebody who's been there, done that in this. This is a unique area, and finding someone that has been through the good and bad of raising outside capital will be very, very helpful. The first time I went out to raise VC money, I thought, gee, I should go find VCs where I can get a warm introduction. And I ended up wasting a lot of time. Again, back to time and speed. And that's why I say identify the category you're looking for in terms of your investor prospects. There's two kind of elements here. One is there where they play in the market? Seed round, A round, B round. Where are they relative to where you need to go next in terms of your round? Second, do they play in your market? If they've never invested in a fintech company and you're fintech, the likelihood that you're going to be first is not very, very high. And you can scope this out. I mean, this is all available information that you can find so that you can start to make sure that when you're talking to somebody, they're in your space for what you need at that time. It's a good idea to find a few, you don't need a lot, but a few who you can socialize early. So before you're ready to go and do an official pitch, that you're in some dialogue with them. They want to get to know you as a person. They're going to have confidence in you as a person. They're going to give you feedback early. Again, you're not showing up with a pitch deck, but you're just in a dialogue with them, and they're going to give you a lot of feedback, not only for how they think about it, their individual firm, but how the general VCs will think about it. And a last point, and this is a little controversial. I've got this going on with a mentee right now who's got a pretty significant capital raise going on. And they're debating, they know what percent of the company they're willing to give up, and the VCs want 5 points more. And our advice to them is, if that capital raise is key to you having explosive success, would you rather have 40% of a $50 million company or 45% of a $20 million company? The percents are not what you care about, it's the dollars. And so if it takes a little bit of give on that in order to get that capital raise to be successful, it hurts. I mean, we can see the pain with the founders when they're giving up percent ownership. But if it's what you need to do in order to get that significant capital raise, do it. I've got two mentees right now that are in this getting ready to raise capital. And what's really terrific is they are in the sales pipeline world. They're getting to the point of having predictable sales results. They've got, in one case, two sales individuals, and the other one they have 4, but 2 of the 4 are part-time. But they're starting to create the data that is going to make it easier for them to go out and talk to investors. So what makes you investor ready? What that investor wants is not necessarily exactly what you want. And what I mean by that is they're looking for a 10x return on their money. And so when they go and invest in 10 companies, they don't know which ones. About a third of them are going to fail. About a third of them are going to modestly return capital. And a third are going to be home runs. And obviously, if they knew which ones were going to be the home runs to start with, that's the ones they'd invest in. But they will, some of them, will push you to be the 10x company when that's hard for you to do. And it's not that they're wrong, it's just you need to appreciate that that's their orientation. So just be aware when you're talking with institutional investors. When you get to the presentation, those first few minutes are everything. We see a lot of mentee presentations, and we kind of encourage people to do some modifications. But in those first few minutes, your job is to have the listener, that VC, to say, you can do that? How do you do that? Now, not that they'll necessarily say it, but that's what you want them thinking, because that's what's going to have them stay with you for the rest of the presentation. That's why they're going to say, this company may be in need to have. And that's where the critical decision points come in, that they are going to sit there as they're listening to you, and this is how they're going to be making decisions about you. Is your value proposition strong enough? Are you in need to have? Do you have evidence from customers that they're validating it? So again, it's not you just claiming it to be true, but you've got validation from customers. And in the best of all worlds, you've got your sales pipeline results to show them. So you can literally say, if I have the more money, I can hire more salespeople. I know what a salesperson can generate. What you're doing when you have that information available is you're reducing the risk for the investor, because you've got the data in hand. Obviously, that the long-term market is big enough. Your first fast market may not be, quote unquote, big enough, but it's a great story to tell the investor, here's why we went after this market first, or all around speed, but we always knew that we had this larger market to go after longer term, and that's what you need to convince the investor that the market's going to be big enough. That they have confidence in the market space. This again gets back to the point that they're comfortable, they have knowledge about the market space. And lastly, that they have confidence in you. If you go through these points, they're assessing you as you make your presentation. But if you go through these points, need to have, we're getting to predictable sales results, and on and on. You're showing that you know what you're doing. You're building confidence by the investor in you. So lastly, and probably the most obvious one on the list, is avoiding cash crises. You know, when you start out with your business, you've got a great idea, you've got the software, but your business is a hypothesis. You believe that there's a market for your offering, you believe that there are customers that will buy, you believe that you can grow and be a profitable company. But at the start, it's a hypothesis. And so being careful about cash is critical. So we encourage people, when they do get their Excel spreadsheets out and they do their revenue projections, go ahead and do the projection out that you believe in. And then go do a second one. That you say, I've got 90% confidence I can achieve this level of revenue. I don't care if it's 80% or 90%, because quite frankly, you don't know if it's 80% or 90%. The point is that you have something that is dramatically less conservative, because how many times are those hockey sticks achieved? And manage and run your company so the cash burn is consistent with the more conservative revenue level. That is the best way to avoid a cash crisis. We have a couple of the most successful now retired emerging software company CFOs in our mentor group. And their recommendation is, if you're down to less than 12 months, and obviously if you're bootstrapped, that's a whole different matter. But if you're running through cash, they say the yellow flag goes up after 12 months, and the red flag goes up when you're down to 6 months of cash. And you really don't want to get there. And one of the reasons you don't want to get there is if you're then going to have to go out to raise more money, guess who's got leverage in that conversation? It's not you. It's not you. So we encourage people, when they're getting to that 12-month point, start to look where you can cut back expenses and get back to a 12 months of cash on hand. And I've got that conversation going on with one or two mentees right now as well. And lastly here, you hiring part-time staff. So you're getting into marketing for the first time. Hiring a part-time person, whether it's marketing, sales, wherever, is a great way to conserve cash. Sure, you're going to get less time put into it. But the counter to that is you're also going to be consuming less cash. So those are the 5 points. These come up almost every time. If you'd asked, again, as I think I said earlier, if you'd asked us 12 years ago when we started, what do you think the top 5 are going to be? Probably the 5th one, avoiding cash crisis, we would have known that. The investor one, I don't know that we would have said, oh, they want to raise money. I don't know if we would have emphasized the getting ready to raise money. So quite frankly, this is what we've learned in our 12 years, is what are the business needs that repeat themselves over and over again. So with that, over to you all for questions. Yes?
So when a mentee comes to you, what is generally the state of their business?
So we will work with a company when they have just a few paying customers. We want the software to be in use. In our early days, we would work with mentees that were still in software development, and the mentors were just twiddling their thumbs. So we want the software in use. We prefer some paying customers. We've had some mentees start with us when they were close to $1 million ARR. But we will work with companies when they're very young. Yes? No, go here. I'll go here for a second.
I guess, go ahead.
Go ahead.
So we're talking about software company, but there's no mention of building the software itself. Is it not a bigger challenge than the other part?
Not for what, that's a great question. The founder, the entrepreneur, has built the software. They are almost always technically knowledgeable. That's the area that they need the least amount of help. They're running a business for the first time. So all these points that I've made today are ones that they're experiencing for the first time and probably don't even have knowledge about. So I would say 95% of our mentoring are on business elements, not the technical ones. Yes?
You mentioned that a lot of co-founders are technical people and they don't really have experience in sales. I know some accelerators specifically recommend having a technical co-founder and non-technical co-founder who basically does the sales and pitches to the investors. Do you believe in this split, or do you believe if I have a technical idea, I should basically train myself to be the marketing, the salesperson, and hire salespeople later on once I have the revenue?
It'd be great if you had a partner, as long as you've had a really good relationship with that partner. We've had several situations where we had to encourage a divorce. One of our most successful mentees, go unnamed, started out where that was the first thing the mentors did, said you've got 2 partners and you are not on the same page. So it'd be great if you had that complementary skill set, but be on the same page. The best way to be on the same page is talk about when the boat hits the rocks and how you're going to react. Don't talk about the good times. How are you going to react? How am I going to react when the boat hits the rocks? Yes?
Question, you talked about the calls to demo ratio, conversion percentages, and then the demo to the contract percentages.
Mm-hmm.
So in this world of cold calling and cold messaging, what would be your words of wisdom, say, if you want to increase your percentage for the calls to demo percentage?
Well, it depends on your business. It depends on I've got one business where the prospects and customers are the owners of last mile delivery companies. And what our mentee found out is if he calls them, they'll pick up the phone. So he doesn't have to go, so it's a cold call, but it's really not, because now it may take him 6 phone calls to get through, but the person will take the call. And I think that's what you do, is you kind of work backwards to say, where do I need to start? I've got a mentee who's in the room who had created a very successful word of mouth in the marketplace, where his early customers were telling others in that field about how great his software was. if you have to start with cold calls, then having these, this is not the time to do it, but there's a discipline of the use of email and calls and how you do that in a period of time. And if you get anybody showing warmth, there's studies that show you better talk to that person immediately.
Or could I
Yes.
suggest even thinking about like consulting, right? If you have a product that you want another business or a potential client to use, you can be a freelance or contract your work out and then start implementing like your software or selling it or offering a trial.
Yes.
For the first 20 customers, most mid-size enterprise buying organizations have kind of the evangelist person or the strategy person, kind of an expander on ideas. When comparing selling into somebody who's got big ideas for their buying side versus a more technocratic person who's going to give you more focused feedback, have you learned anything from who those first 20 customers should be? Other than they're in your focus market.
You're probably going to, well, again, depending on what business you are, it's going to kind of dictate who you're talking to. You're talking to the CFO, or you're talking, or maybe not the CFO to start with, but someone in the finance field, or on the business side, or the tech side. I would say job one is get in the door. Just get in the door. I mean, obviously, if you can get in the door higher up, that'd be fantastic. But you have to tell your story. And again, back to time and speed.
Yeah.
Get in there and find out, because again, even if it's a quote unquote lower level person, you can do, remember, open-ended questions. You can explore that person talking to you about what they see as the benefit, the problem you're solving, and you're sitting there going, does this fall in the category of need to have or not? Yes?
Do you have any companies in the ChatGPT space come to you yet?
Not yet. Not yet. I assume that will happen soon. We have, I mentioned earlier, I mean, we've worked with 76 companies to date. We have 20 current mentees that we're working with, and they range all over the place in terms of markets and industries, but all software, SaaS companies.
So do you guys also work with tech-enabled software businesses, or just straight software, like just plain SaaS?
SaaS. Yes.
So before working with a company, do you evaluate their software to see if there's a market fit, must have versus nice to have?
Yeah, well, yes. I mean, we have an interviewing process and then a presentation process where mentors are listed. So the candidate, the mentee candidate, comes in and does a presentation, and you know, at the very top of the list, where how we will decide is three things. It's, does this feel like a need to have to us? Is the market big enough? Because we're looking to go and help companies that have a great growth potential. Remember, we're not doing this for our financial gain. And I should have mentioned this, and I'm going to do this on the next slide. The whole purpose of MESA 12 years ago was to grow the size and vibrancy of the Minnesota startup software community. So again, we're looking for strong value proposition, substantial market opportunity, and a mentorable founder.
So if you're rejecting the ones that need more help, that you're going against the value?
Actually, we're not, because if you think about our mission statement, our goal is to grow the size and vibrancy of the community. We're going to do that by helping companies that can be successful and as soon as possible. When we decline working with a company, we'll tell them why. We've had companies that pitched to us in a period earlier. In fact, we had this happen just last month, that pitched 2 years later, and then we brought them in because they'd rethought the offering, they'd rethought their market focus. Any last questions? Okay, well, if not, I thank you very much and have a great afternoon.